the password we never said. I didn't notice the lipstick on my drinking glass until the elevator doors closed on the way up to our floor. It was the shade Maya never wore, something too brave for the boardroom she ruled, too dangerous for the charity luncheons she loathed but hosted anyway. The color sat there like a dare, a crescent on the rim of my highball from last night, when I'd left the glass on the credenza because the evening had ended in that blurry way when you carry your exhaustion to the bedroom like laundry. I hadn't invited anyone home. I hadn't even stayed out late. So the sight of it felt like a magician's reveal. The queen was in my pocket all along. When the doors opened at 22, I could already hear music from the hallway. Not loud, just that confident hum expensive speakers make when the right person is home. Our door was ajar. That was Maya's tell when she wanted the world to know she felt safe. When she wanted me to know I could walk in without bracing. Inside, the apartment was gold with late light. The river was a long knife through the windows. On the kitchen island, a bouquet of lilies waited in a glass vase like the answer to a question I hadn't asked. The lipstick glass wasn't on the credenza anymore. It was in the sink, rinsed, halo faded. Maya stood barefoot in one of my shirts, sleeves rolled, hem barely grazing the edge of the thighs she never pretended not to like. She was cutting limes with the precision of a surgeon who knows how often people survive. A playlist I knew but couldn't name curled in the air. She looked up, clocked me, and smiled in a way that made the room decisive. "You're early," she said. "Elevator was hungry for me," I said. "It ate the stops." "Lucky elevator." She handed me a wedge of lime across the island. "Taste." I salted it with the shaker and put it in my mouth. The shock woke up parts of me that had been at my desk all afternoon. "What's the occasion?" "Testing how the night might go," she said. "Sometimes tasting is better than guessing." Is that a philosophy or a threat? Door number 3, a promise. When we first met, Maya told me she liked promises that were intentionally vague. "Better delivery odds," she'd said. I told her I liked deadlines. She said, "The deadline is wanting it." The lilies edged the room with sweetness that always reminded me of expensive funerals. Maya glanced at them like they'd paid rent. "They came 2 hours ago," she said. "From who?" Card said an admirer. Could be you, could be the city. "Not me," I said, watching her watch me. "But I'm happy to get the credit." There are nights with your person that feel like you're both wearing your best version without the tags. There are others where a loose thread on the hem of a sentence catches and pulls the whole day down. This night had both in it before we'd even touched. We ate on the balcony because the air wasn't sure if it wanted to be hot or cold, and that indecision felt like something we'd ordered. Below us, the promenade had new lamps that tried too hard to be Paris. Across the water, a billboard stuttered through ads for phones the price of rent. The river took it all personally. "Do you remember our password?" Maya asked, picking at her salmon with a fork like she was interrogating it. "Which one?" "The one for truth." She flicked me a look. "We made it up after that fight about my meetings with the handsome donor, remember?" "Right," I said, even though I didn't. In my defense, we have a lot of fights that feel like rehearsals for bigger ones. "You said you wanted a word we could use when we needed to tell something ugly, and the other person had to listen without cross-examining. I chose the word." "What is it again?" She smiled in a way that told me I'd failed a small test. "If I told you now, I'd be wasting it." "If you used it now," I said, "what would you be telling me?" "That you're not the only one who gets anonymous deliveries," she said, and let the sentence hang between us like a rope neither of us would pull, unless we wanted to see which one of us landed wrong. After dinner, she left to shower. I collected plates, glasses. In the sink, the highball waited. The lipstick half-moon had thinned in the rinse, a ghost of a mouth that might have been a warning. On the back of the glass, in the faintest trace of condensation lines, someone had drawn their finger down once, as if testing the surface. It made a mark you couldn't see if you didn't want to see. I wanted to see everything. When Maya came back, the shirt was gone. She wore a black dressing gown I knew the texture of too well to pretend casual. She leaned against the doorway and watched me wash a plate as if it were an audition. "We could go to the gala downstairs," she said. Leela texted. "She's trying to get me to introduce her to the new developer who's promising to turn the warehouse district into a museum-park-degentrification miracle." "I heard he cheats on his projections," I said, "and his wife." "Occupational hazards," Maya said. "What's ours?" "Assuming we'll always recognize each other when the lights change." She moved toward me. There's something about the way she walks barefoot that reminds me of good news. "Turn the lights off then," she said, touching my wrist. "Let's see if you still find me." We turned the apartment down. Not dark, just less available. The city pulled its shirt back on outside. Inside, Maya's hands were the temperature of certainty. We have always been good in that language, even when we were bad in the others. The couch made more sense than the bed because it let the river into the scene without making it a witness. When she climbed over me, the tie of the gown loosened like a quiet idea. I saw the birthmark on her shoulder, the one that looks like a comma, and thought about pauses. "Say it," she whispered when I touched the place below her ear that she calls her truth switch. "Say what?" "That you didn't send the flowers." "I didn't," I said, and for a second she looked relieved in the way only honest people do. "And the lipstick?" she asked. "It wasn't mine," I said, "but it was in my sink." She laughed then, a soft thing with an edge to it. "You are a disaster," she said, and brought her mouth down to mine. Her lipstick tasted like quarrels solved in advance. "We went slow the way you do when you're trying to prove you're not running away from something." After we dozed in that post-storm stillness, when I opened my eyes, the room had reassembled itself into an argument. The balcony doors were closed. The lilies had leaned like eavesdroppers. Maya was on her phone, screen glow on her face like a mask. "Don't murder me," she said, not looking up. "I have to send 2 emails or the museum park miracle becomes a parking lot." "I'll hold the trial until morning," I said. While she typed, I walked to my desk to plug in my own phone. On the leather blotter lay a key card from the Riverlight Hotel down the block. I recognized it because our friend Alex had hosted his birthday there last fall and we'd acquired too many of them, those black rectangles with the silver wave. This one had a number written on the back in pen, 1907, and beneath that in smaller script a word, Finch. I showed Maya the card. She took it like it might bite. "Someone is very devoted to ornithology," she said. "Finch, what they ran out of sparrow and wren." The last time I'd seen a bird name attached to a room number, it had come with a story I still can't tell well without someone deciding I'm the villain. "Do you know about this?" I asked. "No," she said, too even. "Then maybe. Then I'll say the password if you want me to." "You can't," I said. "I don't remember it." She stood, robe knotted again, the light finding her like it had a favorite. "Come with me," she said. "Let's stop pretending we like not knowing." The Riverlight lobby was designed by someone who believes marble is a personality. The night staff smiled with that specific discretion hotels teach. "I see you, I do not see you." The elevator mirrored us into 4 people who looked like they made a decision and were currently carrying it uphill. 19 was quiet in the way expensive carpet muffles regret. Room 1907 was near the end of the hall, across from a water cooler that made the same sound as the river in winter. The key card worked. When the light blinked green, Maya gave me the smallest possible nod. I pushed. The room smelled like citrus and secrets. On the bed sat a woman in a dress the color of midnight before the storm. She looked at us, then at her watch like she was irritated with time. She was not Maya's friend Leela. She was not anyone I knew. She was, however, exactly the kind of person the phrase an admirer wants to be. "Right on time," she said to Maya, then to me, "and you brought the husband." "We're not married," Maya said, and her tone could have cut a necktie. "Who are you?" "Finch," the woman said, as if we were supposed to clap. "Or Leah. Or the person your boss asked to make sure you weren't going to blow up his donor agreement before the gala tomorrow." "I don't have a boss," Maya said. "I have a board." "And the board has emergencies," Leah said, patting the bed as if we were going to sit for story time. "Your anonymous lilies were from me. The lipstick on the glass, from me. I brought it when I came up at lunch with a spare key because I wanted you to know someone could walk into your life and leave a mark you'd notice too late. I wanted you to feel how donations feel." I stepped forward. "If you broke into our home—" "I didn't break in, Nathan," she said, looking too pleased to know my name. "Maya invited me 10 months ago when she agreed to make the developer's promenade look like a public good. Remember the password." Maya's chin lifted. "Don't use that word if you don't know what it means." "On the contrary," Leah said, crossing her legs, "your password is honeysuckle. He hates the smell. You said so at the tasting dinner. I told my client he shouldn't write his liability waivers like love letters. He didn't listen." The room tilted. Her voice had a practiced cadence like someone who does this, a seduction of attention professionally. "You planted evidence to make me paranoid," I asked. "I planted awareness," she said. "Charities take money from men who want forgiveness without confession. The waiver you'll be asked to sign tomorrow," she said to Maya, "is a prenuptial written in ink made of rainwater and threats. You know this." "Then why the theater?" Maya said. "Because you're tired of gentle persuasion," Leah said. "Because you love him, and he makes you brave in soft ways, and I needed to remind you of the hard ones. Because you were thinking about making peace with a small evil to avoid a big fight. And because my client thinks you're a decoration." Maya's jaw worked. When she is angrier than she wants to show, she goes very still. "You could have sent an email." "Emails disappear," Leah said, standing. "Marks do not." It should have offended me more than it did that a stranger used our home like a message board. But in the microsecond between my breath and my next sentence, I thought about the last 6 months. The meetings, the promises, the way Maya checked our locks when we got home, and then told me I was paranoid when I asked who she'd had drinks with after 10. Not because she was cheating, because she was building a case, because she was betting we'd recognize each other in the dark. "I'll say the password," Maya said. Leah smiled like she'd won something. "If you must." "Honeysuckle," Maya said, and there it was. The small ache in my throat that comes when truth walks into the room and refuses to leave. "I knew about the waiver," she told me, eyes on mine. "I've been trying to get the votes to reject the money, but the board wants the splash. They think with a few photo ops, the river problems will be someone else's headline. I asked Leah to help me make the risk impossible to ignore. I didn't know she'd stage it in our apartment. I didn't know about the lipstick." "I thought you'd be more fun," Leah said, unrepentant. I looked at Leah. "Get out," I said. She tilted her head, amused. You're a crisis manager, Nathan. I read your profiles. This is a controlled burn. Get out. She took her bag. At the door she paused. He really loves you, she said to Maya and then to me, quieter. And you really love a story until it loves you back. She left. The room was suddenly too empty. Maya walked to the window and looked at the river like it owed her money. I'm sorry, she said back to me, for the theater, for the lilies, for the passwords you remember in your bones but not with your mouth. Are you asking me to be furious or useful? I asked. Both, she said, turning, but start with useful. I've spent my life walking into rooms where everyone is pretending. The trick is not to act like you're the only honest person. The trick is to set the stage so the pretense collapses under the weight of itself. Tomorrow, I said, you call a private session with the board 2 hours before the gala. You bring the waiver, you bring the flood data, you bring a donor who isn't a developer but knows how to talk money like it's oxygen. I'll get Sparrow, I said, and smiled at how Maya's eyebrows lifted at the name. A reporter who doesn't mind sleeping on couches for a story. He'll sit outside that room with a camera in his eye. If the vote goes wrong, he publishes at midnight. If it goes right, he publishes at midnight with you as the hero who said no. Maya's mouth did a thing I only see when she's 17 in the heart and ruthless in the head. You'll do that. I'll do that, I said, and then I'll buy new glasses. She stepped into me, pressing her forehead to mine. Say our password again. Honeysuckle, I said, and hated the word less. When we got home, I threw the lilies out and washed the vase until it rang like a bell. Maya leaned in the doorway, watching me with that half-smile that says she's counting the ways I'm useful and wanted, and the count is not a competition. We slept in a tangle that wouldn't photograph well. In the morning, she woke first. She whispered something into my shoulder that sounded like a statue. At 10, she texted me a photo of a printed waiver with 3 signatures missing. At noon, Sparrow sent me a crow emoji and a link that wasn't live yet. At 6, Maya stood at a podium and thanked the developer for his enthusiasm and declined his money with a sentence so clean it left no fingerprints. At 11:59, the story went up, and the river for once felt like it was on our side. Later that night, she lay across my chest, tracing the old scar over my ribs from a bike accident in a city that wasn't ours. Do you forgive me for the lipstick? She asked. I forgive you for the theater, I said, and for hearing a woman named after a bird to break into our day. She didn't break in, Maya said and smiled. I left the door open. Don't, I said, pinching her hip. That's a habit for other lives. She caught my hand and threaded our fingers. Then new habit, she said. When we need to tell something ugly, we don't wait for a word to give us permission. What do we use instead? Wanting it, she said, the deadline we'd always meant. We never wrote the password down again. But sometimes, walking home after a night when the city looked like a lover we'd both had and forgiven, she'd reach for me in the elevator, press into that space where the floor numbers climb and breathe at my ear, honeysuckle. And I'd know, not a code, just a blessing for the truth we hadn't said yet, arriving on time, letting us recognize each other even when the lights changed.